Your host, Randy Tobler.
American independence, we hereby rededicate the United States of America as one nation under God. On July 4th, 1776, you gave 56 patriots the courage and the conviction to sign their names to the Declaration of Independence. Every day since, over each of our 250 years, America has been a land of hope and liberty, a place of miracles, and the light and glory of all nations.
Well, that's Speaker Mike Johnson posting about this semi-quincentennial week as it unfolds ahead of the big July 4th, 250th birthday of America celebration. And it is a big week up on the Mall, although 10 states are sitting out. But
Say that number
that's okay.
again.
The semi-quincentennial. Did I get that right? Stephanie, I got that right, didn't I?
I don't know.
Stephanie likes to check me, make sure I'm getting it right here. A little fact check. John, did I get that right? John Marsh there.
Got it right. I would like Stephanie's translation to Hebrew, though, on that, maybe.
And we're going to be talking about Stephanie. Welcome back, Steph. She was in Israel last week, and we're going to get an update on that at 8:05. We'll be talking with Art Arthur later on in the program because SCOTUS came down with a couple of huge decisions on Thursday, and we're going to check on immigration policy, what it means, because it was great to see a big victory. Today's show, I think we're going to be on the edge of our chairs, Stephanie, waiting for the Supreme Court decision. I've heard some rumblings that maybe the birthright citizenship thing may come down.
Yes, there are 8 major cases remaining before the court, one of which is the birthright citizenship case. Of course, many Supreme Court watchers think that the Trump administration is going to lose that case, but it would be, even if the admin loses that case, it's important the way in which they might lose that case. But that's been, the big case all term, and they've announced that they're going to announce some decisions today, and the speculators are saying it could be this one.
Well, welcome into Wake Up Missouri. We're glad you're with us. Hope you had throughout the whole United States, a sweltering weekend. The heat wave is on, big fires in Utah and other places. But nonetheless, I mean, it's going to be a beautiful, beautiful celebration, as I think Americans all across the spectrum, except for the fringes, will probably realize that isn't it a great thing that in this country, as opposed to probably 99% of the countries across the world, you can pretty much say what you want to say and have your opinion, even if it is anti-patriotic, even if it's pro-socialist, you can have that opinion.
Plenty of that lately.
Plenty of that, isn't there? Yeah, yesterday, in fact, we had a little bit from... actually, it was after the Supreme Court decision. Mayor Mamdani had some thoughts about the Supreme Court decision, and to me, it almost sounded like a little bit of defiance.
Just a fount of knowledge. I can't wait.
Yeah, it was almost. I think it was basically defiance.
Normalized, and to have people who, frankly, taught the world about freedom have their own freedom be put in jeopardy by the actions of a Supreme Court and a federal administration. It is not only cruel, it's something that we will not ever accept. And so we stand here as New Yorkers proud of standing in solidarity and proud to do everything that we can to keep people in their homes and to keep people together.
What does that mean in the wake of the Supreme Court saying that temporary protected status for Haitians and Syrians and others, some of whom have been for 18 years or more, and it's supposed to be for 18 months, he's basically, I think, telegraphing that try to get those people to go home. I mean, that's like defiance.
Oh, 100%. It basically says, here's the court, that decides the supreme law of the land, and we don't care. We're going to do what we want.
And Fetterman was on with one of the weekend shows saying, he said when all the Democrats were calling about a constitutional crisis last year when Trump was, saying, well, I don't know if we have to abide by the Supreme Court ruling on deportation of various groups. Remember all that? And he said, I stood out and said it's not a constitutional crisis because he has not defied the court. He said this would be and threatens to be. Fetterman. He's like my favorite Democrat these days.
He's everyone's favorite Democrat.
Did you see that he and John and Senator McCormick out of Pennsylvania, after the Josh Shapiro, the governor there, decided not to spend Pennsylvania tax money on a booth at the Great American State Fair there in the mall, which has been going on since, was it last Wednesday or Thursday? The next day or two, they came up with private funds, and the two senators from Pennsylvania, Fetterman and McCormick, said, we're going to get it done, and they have some presence up there now.
Good.
So good for them.
Good for them.
Yeah. Missouri has a presence. It's a Route 66 theme, right?
Yep.
I think my son Sean is going to, he's in for the week, but I think he's going to be able to, it extends beyond the July 4th weekend,
I
doesn't
think
it?
that's right. If he can go and take some photos,
It would be fun. So he'll be back next week. I'm hoping he can go up there and say. And I haven't heard a whole lot that's very partisan about it, even though a lot of entertainers canceled their performances. Trump made a speech. He did use the word Democrats, and I think he used the word libtards, if I'm not mistaken. Someone did.
Wonder what Sean's neighbor you got to meet when you were in suburban D.C. thinks of it all.
When Sean had got his MBA up there, and we went up a month or two ago for that, and I met his neighbor Bill, and the guy was just like, it's funny. I think we Republicans and conservatives and whatever you call yourself, conservatarians, libertarians, we tend to want to make our argument and have our discussion and, make our point very vigorously. This guy, I was standing outside the pizza truck at Sean's party, and, hey, what do you do? Oh, I'm a consultant. Oh, federal or state? Well, what do you think? I'm here in D.C., federal. I said, oh, good. Why, do you have a donkey or an elephant on your shirt? And he said, and I said, I do conservative talk radio. We talk about mostly, we slice a little to the right when we golf. I was trying to be fun about it. He says, oh, you elected the pedophile. You elected the homophile. He might as well have been putting his finger in my chest. That's the way the
You should have Sophie Cunningham'd him and pointed right back at him.
Did you see? That was great. The Sophie Cunningham. Did you see that?
Yes, it was making the rounds, even though,
Oh
and I was with, a lot of non-Missourians, and they were all, and I said, she's went to Mizzou, right? We claim her. She's ours. No, that was great.
It was great. And then in other news, this was interesting. Friday, in case you didn't hear this, talk about what goes around comes around. Remember when John Bolton said this would be the end of Donald Trump's career when he was talking about Trump's alleged, and he was indicted for it, but of course it went away because I think the standing of the judge said that they didn't have any standing, the special prosecutor. John Bolton said this will be the end of Trump's career when he sequestered those records at Mar-a-Lago. Well, I guess what goes around comes around.
Good morning. Thank you all for being here today. The rules governing classified and national defense information apply equally to everyone, regardless of position and regardless of how long you have served with the United States government. This morning, just moments ago, John Robert Bolton II pled guilty in federal court to the unlawful retention of national defense information. According to the terms of the plea agreement, Mr. Bolton faces a maximum sentence of up to 5 years in prison.
He'll also pay a fine of $2.25 million and will forfeit his pension. I don't know about all of the, from what I've heard about some of the government benefits, it sounds like among all of the penalties he's going to have to pay, that losing that pension may be the biggest one. It's pretty nice, right? Government pension. So he's the guy that was so quick to point out what a booger Donald Trump was. Well, here he goes. I mean, now I guess he'll be spending some time. It could be, I guess the statute says up to 10 years, Stephanie, but I guess part of the deal was that, it could be only up to 5. So I guess the judge will make the final decision.
Yeah, I think that's the case. And this was a hot topic for a while, whether we were talking about the document, and especially in the presidential context. Remember whether it was Biden, the boxes in his
next
garage,
to the Corvette.
and but it's a serious issue, right? When it comes to national security, I think there for a long time we had all these conversations about classified documents, and then there were these exceptions, and there were some lawsuits, and no one was really ever held accountable. I think this is a step in the right direction, that we are, we mean it when we say these things are classified. We're going to hold you accountable.
And of course, the other thing that we're waiting on is to see if Donald Trump will actually sign that Housing Affordability Act that went into place. He's holding a signing ceremony hostage to the Save America Act, which I think there's some polling out there that even 70%, I think, of or more of Democrats want that. It's pretty much in 75-25 if you look at all voters type of a thing. Mike Johnson's going to be sending it back to the president today, he says.
Speaker Johnson said the legislation is something he's spoken to President Trump at length about. On Fox's Sunday Morning Futures, he said he will send the bill back to the White House today because it accomplishes a number of goals.
It will increase the availability, the access to more housing, bring down cost, cut regulations, do the things that we know are very important for that market.
President Trump was supposed to sign the housing bill last week, but canceled the ceremony, insisting that the Save America Act that would bring voting reform pass first.
Well, as I understand it, I mean, the Congress is still in session officially. They have not taken their official recess. Therefore, they're still in session, even if they're not there this week doing much business. But I guess that it's some kind of a technicality, right, John?
Yeah, matter of fact, I think that's what Congressman Alford told us.
Right. And when we talked to Mark Alford last week, he said, well, if he doesn't veto it within 10 days, it goes into law. And so hopefully it'll be more affordable. Producer Drake will be happy about that. In fact, he's we out home shopping this week because now it's more affordable, or it will be more affordable. You're looking to see if what? No,
that is laughable.
Oh,
I'm eating biscuits and grilled cheeses this week. That's what I'm eating.
Oh, I see. Do you have that? Could you push the little violin sound button, please?
Oh, I'm not looking for pity. I'm just letting you know I'm not buying a house.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Yeah, he's got a new car, Bill. Give him a break, you know.
Sales tax is crazy, by the way.
Yeah. Did you go get your plates?
Not yet, but I need to.
That is another slam. You talk about a gut punch. You pay whatever you pay for the car these days, which is outrageous, right? Whether it's a pre-owned or a new car. And then you go and get it registered and the state says, give me some more. It's a real punch when you do that. Yeah.
Then at personal property tax time.
Yeah.
They're back again.
Oh, I forgot. We don't really buy our personal property. We rent it from the government, don't we? I forgot about it. Yeah, I didn't forget about that. Why'd you have to bring it up, John? And when we come back, it's the Daily DC Rundown with Stephanie Bell. You're listening to Wake Up Missouri. I'm Randy Tobler, along with Stephanie, John Marsh, and producer Drake.
It's Wake Up Missouri.
man who can't afford to catch a cold. We have degraded them deeply. That's why we went in. They've got three wheels down and they're axle dragging.
John Kennedy, an American treasure. Here's Stephanie Bell with the Daily DC Rundown.
Love that guy. But what I heard last week continually is that, we respect our enemies, right? And they and we're taking it very seriously. Of course, last week, Iran claimed authority over the Strait of Hormuz, saying ships would need to coordinate with Tehran for safe passage. President Trump accused Iran of attacking a commercial vessel with a drone, and that prompted additional U.S. military strikes on missile, drone, and radar sites. Then we had kind of a temporary stand down. Then Iran launched strikes toward Kuwait and Bahrain on Sunday, claiming the U.S. broke the ceasefire that was never really a ceasefire, of course. No injuries were reported, but I think late yesterday we heard that the U.S. and Iran have agreed to stand down for now. They are expected to meet in Qatar on Tuesday with negotiators focusing on the nuclear program. So it's very fragile right now.
And so far, I guess the neighboring states are holding in with America. They haven't wavered so far, but that's a concern.
So far. Also, all eyes this week are on the Supreme Court. We got word that they are going to be issuing an opinion or opinions today. Some speculators are saying this could be the big birthright citizenship case. Of course, there are 8 major cases remaining before the court. The decisions will be released at 10 a.m. Eastern time. So if we want you to stick with us, Gary Nolan will be watching that. Last week, of course, the court handed the administration some pretty significant wins. But with this birthright citizenship case, even Trump's admitted that he might lose this case. And I think the court watchers have said kind of are anticipating that result. But of course, it's important in the way in which he might lose that case. Of course, he had issued an executive order that would require at least one parent to be a U.S. citizen or lawful permanent resident. And that's the big case of the term. So we could hear more on that today. We've also got many other important cases. That includes the FTC removal case about Rebecca Slaughter. We've got the Federal Reserve case with federal Fed Governor Lisa Cook. Those 2 cases are still pending. A lot about kind of executive authority, presidential authority still on the docket. We've got the election cases. There's the case out of Mississippi that allows Mississippi to count ballots up to 5 days after Election Day. That could have significant implications for Election Day going forward, and perhaps even in these midterms coming up.
Are they still counting ballots in California?
I think so.
Currently, they may be.
Do you have one in your pocket? I think we can mail it in now.
Drake, would you drop that in the ballot box, please, for me?
Okay, good. We've also got the transgender athlete cases that involve state bans preventing transgender female athletes from competing in girls' sports. And these are really important, right? Although they arise out of one case, they're about a state law, and oftentimes states copy other states' laws. So with respect to the transgender case, we've got 27 states that currently have similar laws. The same thing, I think, with the Mississippi balloting case, there are more than a dozen states that have similar cases about counting ballots after elections. So they have, oftentimes it involves one state. But it can have really broad implications. So a lot of folks watching those.
The transgender rule could impact Missouri's prohibition against that, right?
I believe
potentially.
So.
Yeah.
Yes. And we've President Trump says we're going to drain the reflecting pool after the July 4th celebration to try to fix some of these issues that Democrats are all big mad about.
It ain't easy being green. I heard that somewhere. Hey, well, for all of you Missouri folks, whether you're clearing out the weeds on your patio or burning the weeds in the field, we've got the roundup on a glyphosate case out of SCOTUS last week. Coming up.
Has America been fair to Donald
Wake Up Missouri, I'm Randy Tobler, along with Stephanie Bell, John Marsh, and Drake Whitman. One of the Supreme Court decisions last week, Stephanie, was on Monsanto's glyphosate, otherwise known originally as Roundup. Of course, now there's all kind of other players there. I know we've talked with folks in Missouri that are advocates for, on both sides of the fence, some saying Missouri ought to be able to label it and give a warning that it's carcinogenic. Others saying, no, it just needs to heed by the federal EPA rules. What did the decision mean for Missourians?
Yeah, it's been a hot topic in the legislature. There's been legislation pending. And of course, the latest count I saw, I think from the Missouri Independent, says that there are more than 25,000 lawsuits pending in Cole County against Bayer that alleges effects from glyphosate. That was as of 2025. So, but I think the numbers, are pretty significant. When we look at what actually happened last week with the Supreme Court, they ruled 7-2 in favor of Monsanto. Monsanto chalking up a big win, finding that the federal law prevents most state lawsuits claiming Roundup should have carried a cancer warning. The law that's at issue is the Federal Insecticide, Fungicide, and Rodenticide Act, and most people call this FIFRA. They said that gives the EPA primary authority over pesticide labels because the EPA has repeatedly concluded glyphosate is not likely to cause cancer and has never required a cancer warning. The court said states cannot effectively require one through lawsuits. Kavanaugh wrote for the majority, and he said allowing state juries to impose different warning requirements would violate FIFRA's requirement for uniform national labeling. So, Monsanto has already paid billions of dollars in settlements and verdicts relating to litigation around the country. And they're saying this ruling could significantly reduce or eliminate thousands of pending Roundup failure to warn lawsuits against Monsanto. And again, when we're talking about Missouri in 2025, it was reported that there were 25,000 lawsuits pending in Cole County. There was in 2023, 3 plaintiffs were awarded $1.56 billion, although that was later reduced to $622 million. The legislation that was that's been pending in Missouri was, I think, sponsored by Representative Dane Deal, and that would make the federal labeling requirement sufficient to satisfy any warning label regarding cancer under current law. So pretty significant. We did see a joint statement from the Farm Bureau and several other ag groups after the Supreme Court ruling. They said today's Supreme Court ruling is a major victory for Missouri farmers and farm families who depend on clear science-based rules to raise food, fuel, and fiber for our country. Farmers need certainty that crop protection tools approved through the federal regulatory process will remain available and governed by a consistent national standard. So that they're praising the rulings. Yeah. And of course, we've heard a lot of things, that I think from the pro side, that it's also kind of a security issue, right? Many farmers source their crop tools from right here in the United States. If that were to become eliminated, right? Because there was some conversation of if these lawsuits continue, maybe it just goes away and it's no longer available to farmers, that then they would be perhaps sourcing these crop protection tools from places like China, right? And that presents a real issue because they're not regulated in the same way. So I think this is a good thing for our country, for our farmers, for our state, and kind of provide some clarity going forward.
Well, it's difficult. Go ahead, John.
I was going to say, I think one of the times we talked to Zach Smith about this, he brought up that there was some case law sort of going back to the debate on all the way up to the Supremes over 2,4-D, which during Vietnam was basically Agent Orange, and they ruled on that. I didn't hear anything in the ruling hearkening back to those cases, though.
I didn't either, and I will say I've been a bit busy the last week. I've not read the entire opinion, but we can check that out. Or maybe ask Zach about it next time we've got him on.
What's interesting is that the IARC, which is the International Agency for Research on Cancer, they're the only ones, the European equivalent of the FDA, our agency has said that there's no conclusive evidence that it's related to human carcinogenesis. The AIRC, though, based on mechanistic models, in other words, how does it interact with our cellular mechanisms and our enzymes and our body functions and our genes, And studies done on, for instance, the Hill was interesting. In the Hill's report on this, the Hill said a landmark 2026 study. You know what it was? They gave pregnant rats this and saw that the offspring of the rats or young rats fed a glyphosate at levels comparable to human maximum allowed, develop cancers in many tissues at higher rates. Well, I don't think that rats and humans are the same, unless you're talking about Democrats. Just kidding out there.
I think,
but you cannot always extrapolate from animal models to human models, and we know that well. On the other hand, you know what's interesting? When they've compared, about 3/4 of the population, including kids, have detectable glyphosate in the urine. But it's thought to be below the level at which it's dangerous. What's interesting though is when they compared regularly, mainstream farming technique products with organic products, the rate of glyphosate found in them was 80% for the traditionally farmed and 40% in the organic products.
Yeah.
One study showed that. So it's in our environment, right? And the question is it really practical, and is it, from a food security standpoint, wise to totally say you can't use Roundup or glyphosate?
And I think importantly, the court did say that the EPA, and I think what you're talking about, Randy, we get new techniques as scientists, as medical professionals. The science sometimes evolves, and we get a new study and it changes our views. And the court pointed out, hey, the EPA reviews new scientific evidence and has a mechanism to change labels if warranted, rather than leaving this kind of as a patchwork system amongst state courts. So, if there's this new groundbreaking study and they can find a conclusive link, then, maybe that changes the requirements for the warnings. But up until that point, right, we're going to be consistent with, the data that's been reviewed by the EPA.
I think we can all agree that Robert Kennedy Jr.'s motives and motions are often aligned, right? I mean, he won a successful big lawsuit against the manufacturers of this back in, 2018, 2019. He's a personal injury attorney. That's what he's done. And you can certainly cherry pick data and say that, there appears to be something there. And I think that at a very minimum, what I would say that I agree with him on is let's try to minimize our exposure to artificial substances, whether it's emulsifiers in food or whether it's glyphosate. By the way, one of the nuances in many of these studies, glyphosate is, I know when I use it on the farm, I use a surfactant with it. And it often comes with a surfactant packaged in it. There are some studies that differentiate in the risk assessment based on the agent glyphosate, which appears to be less in some studies than when it's used as a surfactant. So maybe it is not the glyphosate. Maybe it's the surfactant. Maybe it's the combination of the two that's really the problem, right? So we have to be careful about whose donkey we pin the tail on.
For the stupid people that may not know what a surfactant is, can you let maybe me and everyone else know?
When we tell you to go and take a shower because you come to the studio after a workout and you didn't take a shower, we tell you to get that thing called soap, and soap tends to make the grit and grime on your body. Producer Drake, athlete. I don't like
what you're insinuating right now.
We like to have fun with Drake. No, surfactant makes things interact with organic substances like those on plants. It makes it stick and it makes it embed itself.
Basically,
it gets it into the plant rather than get just off the plant like water off a duck's back. That's what surfactant is.
I want everyone to weigh in. What are your thoughts on glyphosate? Do you have a small hobby farm like Randy? You use it. You use the surfactant. 573-874-9390. Let us know. But also, I mean, I think you bring up a good point in that, like, also you need to apply it in the right way. Mm-hmm. Follow the instructions. I think when it comes to food, maybe Diet Coke causes cancer or this causes cancer, and then you find out that people drank 72 Diet Cokes in a day, right? Like or whatever. So I mean, when we're talking about these products, it's also that we're humans, and sometimes we eat things we shouldn't. Right?
Well, how many?
Kids were eating Tide Pods.
No, you're right. Absolutely.
Right? We do silly things with products that are otherwise safe, and we introduce a level of risk because we're sometimes stupid.
And here's another thing.
Forget about the Missouri connection to this whole thing, too. I mean, it was invented back in the 70s by none other than St. Louis's own Monsanto, and made them zillions of dollars to what did Bayer give for Monsanto? It was into tens of billions when they bought them out.
Well, and here's the other thing. I mean, look, the only farming I do, ladies and gentlemen, is some food plot planting. A couple, 10 acres of some soybeans.
Randy's
right?
never brought in zucchini to share with me.
No.
He talks about how he farms, but I haven't seen any evidence of that.
Though, if you've ever tried, when I plant those turnips in the fall, once the frost comes, the leaf of a turnip or a field radish, it's sweet as sugar. It's like sugar. That's why the deer like it when it gets really, really cold. But I digress. So this year, like most years, when we put all of the stuff in the tank to spray on our little boom sprayer I have, I don't put just glyphosate in there. We put that and some stuff I can't pronounce that my buddies who know what they're doing can pronounce. And, I wear my respirator most of the time. Do you wear a respirator, everyone out there, when you're spraying your fields or if you're working, around the garden? You should wear a respirator when you're around any pesticide because aside from the carcinogenesis of it and the cancer potential, these things can act as endocrine disruptors. So, for instance, we talk about turning men into women with injections and women into men with injections. You're affecting your sex steroids and your thyroid hormones and other things when you are taking these, when you are ingesting these substances, whether you're inhaling them or whether you're eating them. So you got to be careful, right? If you're out there in a concentrated setting and you're using these on the field, I talked to an agricultural environmental specialist from Nebraska once, and the guy said, it's hard to really know if people are doing all of the safety things they had. Number one among them, wearing a respirator when you're spraying your field. Is everyone doing that? I don't know.
Well, people from Nebraska are inherently stupid. Just going out the gate with that one. Also, are you saying that I could get boosted T by huffing glyphosate?
They tend to act more as estrogens. So you'll become
Go the other way.
No,
bud.
you'll become a beta male if you're around too much glyphosate.
So it's fine for women.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Women don't wear your respirators when you use glyphosate.
There's other endocrine things. Endocrine is hormonal in general, but they tend to have some more pro-estrogenic kind of things, in them. So, look, I'm not saying that there's not some hazard risk from glyphosate and too much of it. Our bodies have a lot of defenses, though, and would I rather have a young child in urban America on EBT stamps? Would I rather have them eating glyphosate-farmed broccoli and spinach and green beans and so? Or would I rather have them eating potato chips and ding-dongs? No, I'll take the former. I'm sorry. It's better for them.
That neon orange dust on the Cheetos.
When we come back, there is a heat wave everywhere. Just step outside. What does it mean for your cognitive performance? That on Make Missouri Healthy Again when we come back.
It's Wake Up.
Caller on the line that we'll get to in just a second. Hang on, David. Our number is 800-529-5572. If you're just joining us, you'd like to join in on the discussion of whatever we're talking about. I'm Randy Tobler along with Stephanie Bell, John Marsh, and Drake Whitman. Thanks for tuning us in. On Make Missouri Healthy again, by the way, today is Maha Day at the National Mall at the Great American State Fair, I heard.
Oh.
Yep. Yeah, so it's Make America Healthy Again Day.
Don't you have a Maha hat? You should be celebrating.
I have a Maha hat. I should have worn it. Yeah, I'll have to go and fetch it. Yeah. So it's hot everywhere. The heat wave is all over the news. Certainly hot around Missouri. Humid as all get out. And Stephanie, you found this this little thing on X that you sent me about a guy claiming that every degree above 5 degrees centigrade, which is 77 degrees Fahrenheit, that cognitive performance, our thinking capability, goes down by 2%. Actually, it's more complicated than that, but it's true that the average, as best we can tell, your best cognitive range for temperature is between 68 and 75 degrees. But it's a U-shaped curve, and especially among the elderly, things get magnified. So above 77 degrees, let's say, things begin to take off in a negative direction. But below 68 degrees, especially in elderly women, it tends to get worse. Right?
I don't notice it as much with my cognitive abilities, but certainly when the temperature gets into the 90, 100, my mood, I'm agitated. I'm agitated when it's that hot.
And maybe it does. I'll bet you that may mean you have a shorter fuse at that temperature, a little more. I think we all get that way, right? It's like a little more touchy. Okay. Well, they found out that during a heat wave, young adults in non-air conditioned buildings showed a 13% increase in reaction time. So that means you're more fight or flight, right? Things are a little more active. But a 6 to 10% reduction in throughput. So you're not as productive. And I think that's true. You just don't feel quite as on it, And
I think the guy was arguing the ideal office temperature, right?
Yeah.
It's smart to keep your offices cool.
Yep.
This brings up a really important discussion, though, I saw a bunch of headlines yesterday, and it was just unbelievable. Apparently, France recorded 1,000 additional deaths because they're having extreme heat over there. And of course,
breaking records.
We've been kind of funning with it because Europeans are discovering that we have air conditioning, and they're like, America's great. It's actually, you can go inside, it's cold. But and so you kind of joke around about it, but this is so insane that we live in today's times and they don't have proper cooling,
wild.
Especially for their elderly. They're seeing these massive,
they've gone green, and that means more people will go to ground, which is not a good thing because of no air conditioning in many places.
And we're early in summer. We've got a lot of heat left to go.
There's much time to suffer the cognitive decline. So if you're going to be playing any kind of games or Monopoly or Scrabble or anything with your kids or anything, make sure that the temperature is good, or else
for the 4th,
they might outthink you. David, what's going on? Thanks for calling Wake Up Missouri.
Well, you hit a nerve when you was talking. I'm a retired Orkin guy. I was with Orkin and I was with some other outfits, so I got 20 years in pest control. I know as much about it as anybody else does. And I'm healthy, and I've never, ever heard of any of my coworkers, even retired coworkers. We've talked about it, but nobody's had it. And, we've taken baths in chemicals. There's accidents sometimes, spills. In 20 years, you're going to have a lot of contact, more than the average.
No, that's right. Unavoidable. Well, and I think it speaks to the resilience of our bodies. We have a lot of protective mechanisms, and, it's good to feed them well. My guess is you probably eat healthy, too, right?
Yeah, and a lot of guys, they're not safety conscious these days. They'll spray around the house.
Okay, we got to run. Thanks for your call, David. Appreciate it. Be back with more.
Justices have at least 2 more days remaining in the term as they finalize 8 cases still outstanding. Among the high-profile opinions, a ruling on President Trump's executive order to eliminate birthright citizenship. The High Court is also still considering a pair of cases from Idaho and West Virginia over transgender students participating in female athletics.
That could impact, that Supreme Court decision could impact Missouri's law, couldn't it? And many others, as Stephanie Bell, my co-host, reported on the Daily DC Roundup last hour. Welcome into Wake Up Missouri. Thanks for being here. John Marsh alongside with producer Drake. And we are following what is, Stephanie, reported to be, I don't know, the little mice in our studio are running around saying, 10 o'clock Eastern, 10 o'clock Eastern. They may do the birthright citizenship release. I don't know how they know that. Is that another leak from the Supreme Court?
Well, there's only 8 cases left on the docket. So eventually, if you keep predicting, there's a limited amount of time. And so,
what are the poly markets saying? I don't know.
What is it? A blind squirrel gets a nut every now and again. So if you just keep, it could be today, and it could be. But there are 8 cases ranging from the birthright citizenship case to some of the FTC person who was let go, the Fed governor who was removed. What else do we have? The Mississippi mail-in balloting, so a big election case. Transgender athletes is still on the docket. It could be any of those. And we'll be watching it very closely and, of course, covering it tomorrow, whatever decision comes out today.
Based on the oral arguments at the time, the birthright citizenship, I think many speculated, those who would even like to see it, go away, because so many other countries in the world, that's not the case. They were skeptical Trump wasn't going to win on that one. But the administration had a lot of wins on the immigration side. Well, a couple of big wins last week. And a federal judge in Texas gave immigration control advocates like me, like you, too. Fair to say, immigration control. I know many of us on the right want to see our sovereignty protected by honoring our borders, right? And that's Trump's like a cleanup in aisle 5 when it comes to immigration, and that's what a couple of the rulings were about.
Yeah, and I think zooming out, there's a lot. These decisions will have implications far into the future about executive authority, about agency independence, about what state, and what we're talking about is a lot of these cases impact not only the state that brought the lawsuit, but many states have similar laws, whether it be transgender athletes or counting ballots after Election Day, that these cases have widespread implications, perhaps even, in the short term, but certainly in the long term. So it will, and we've seen the increased, we saw it with Biden. We see in the auto pen, right? We've seen increased use of executive authority, of the use of executive orders. And you have to kind of think, if we have trouble in the midterms and we have a stalemate in Congress, the scope of that, of President Trump's ability to issue executive orders could be really important in the next several years, whether they rein that in or whether they grant him, pretty broad authority to do things via executive order. So
wouldn't it be nice to codify some of these things with an even stronger Congress rather than the tipsy balance we have now?
Based on what happened in New York, we're seeing, the Democrat socialists. The Democrats have a real problem right now because they've got some real candidate problems. They have some. There are some serious divisions in their party right now, and it's hard to see, who's in charge. And then you've got Fetterman, who's the only reasonable one I can identify right now, and that could be some trouble for them heading into the midterms.
Some serious stinkers that were elected in New York. So one of the decisions last week, and we're getting a lot of incoming on our text line, 573-874-9390, and on the phones, we have Paul waiting to talk about it, was the glyphosate decision that basically said that you can't sue someone. This was a Missouri case. Robert Darnell, I think was the guy's name. You can't sue in state court just because the state says it's carcinogenic when, the federal government sets the bar for the risk associated with various pesticides and herbicides. I always think about it. I use such a mix of things when we're spraying. So how do you know it's glyphosate? I don't know. Well, anyway, we have Paul on the line. By the way, we're going to be talking with, if you're just joining us, we're going to be talking with Art Arthur, who is an ex-immigration judge. He's a senior fellow at the Center for Immigration Studies that has done a lot of work documenting the travesty that was the Biden administration immigration policy and all of the spin-off effects on our jobs, on our safety throughout our communities, transformation of entire rural communities throughout America, and affecting Missourians as well. And we'll talk with Art Arthur about those decisions and what they mean at 7:35. Don't miss us. And follow us on YouTube and Facebook. Don't forget to do that. You can see all of the shenanigans going on here in the studio on Facebook and YouTube every day. Let's talk to Paul. Paul, thanks for waiting. What's on your mind?
Hey, great to be with you this Monday morning. Well, hey, I don't know if Stephanie's got a seatbelt on that studio chair, but if she does, you better buckle it up because I'm probably going to say something that's going to be a bit of an impact.
Uh-oh. Okay, we'll make. Are you buckled up, Stephanie?
We're ready.
She's buckled up. Yep, seatbelt's on. Okay.
Well, hey, first of all, I'll try to be real general in my comments because you guys got a fast-moving show. But the modern agriculture, it's a modern miracle. Most people in today's society have no clue about what goes into the modern agricultural industry and our food production system. And I actually worked for several years for some chemical companies in the area of product registration. I mean, right in the area where you're setting the risk level of these pesticides like we're talking about. And most people have no idea the years, the millions of dollars, how expensive those studies go to determine the risk of these pesticides. And then when they're all done, they add like a 10% margin, tenfold margin of error to make sure the stuff's safe. So with Roundup, the government did that. They set the risk assessment. And I'm telling you, Roundup, glyphosate, produced like a revolution in agriculture that most people aren't even aware of. It's called no-till farming. Mm-hmm. And just to sum up what no-till farming means to us here in mid-Missouri, if it weren't for no-till farming, Big Muddy would be much muddier.
Well, I can tell you, my old John Deere ancient 6-row planter with no-till, baby, that gets the job done. You betcha.
Good going, Randy. And glyphosate, it's a protein, and the old saying was when glyphosate hits the dirt, it's inert. It's a protein, and the soil microorganisms.
But Paul, I hear what you're saying, but you can find glyphosate residues in urine. I mean, so I don't know that that's totally true. We want to be truth tellers here, right?
Right. Yeah, I want to follow the science too, But I'm telling you, a lot of science goes into this risk assessment stuff. And
you're right.
But here's where I'm going to.
Okay.
Where Stephanie better have her seatbelt buckled.
Okay.
I've been involved in the Voy-Dyer process a couple times. That's when they do jury selection.
Yeah.
And both times, in both cases, I knew something about the subject matter of the case. And the first time, I was surprised they didn't want me because I knew something about this. Yeah. The second time, I had a lawyer sit next to me, and she told me, there's no way you are going to get on the jury selection because they don't want people who know the subject matter. They want people who the lawyers will inform. What the lawyers can tell them what they want them to know in the court case.
I see. Okay. So those would be, they want people that went to Loma Linda University out in, okay. All right. Thanks a lot. We appreciate it, Paul. All right, Stephanie, you've been challenged. Do the attorneys want naive people who don't have knowledge of the subject?
I don't think that's a challenge. And I have sat through the same process in Boone County. And it's okay if you have some knowledge about the general subject matter. I don't think lawyers are scared about that. I think what they want you to be able to do is have an open mind. They will ask you, despite knowing some about medical stuff, despite knowing some about the law, can you take the facts that are presented by the lawyers, not any of this outside stuff, and make a decision not based on your personal knowledge, but based on the evidence presented today? And that's what you're charged with as a juror always.
Well, don't ask me to
So
come
you
in.
don't have to be, I mean, you might go in thinking, I don't know anything about this. I can't make a decision because I'm not an expert. You know, it's a jury of your peers. You don't have to be an expert, but you also can't come in with preconceived notions, whether you're doing a criminal case or whether it's some sort of civil liability case, and base your decision on your personal beliefs rather than what's presented in court those days.
The only time I was summoned to jury duty, I didn't make it past the first cut, and the deputy prosecutor took one look at me and said, "What are you doing here? You probably know more about this case than we do. Get out of here," to paraphrase.
With that in mind, if any courts would like to hire me to be a juror because I am very naive and don't know much, you can call into the station and I will go.
And you'll get lunch too.
Well, and I was just going to say you might check on the pay scale because I think I got $6 or $7 for being there that day for the whole day. I think it's more if you get selected. I don't know the exact, but it's not a lot, Drake.
We have a text, a listener who texted us and said his wife and he attended a wonderful program at the Baptist Church entitled "In God We Trust." Christian-based presentation of patriotism and faith. A choir and orchestra provided a wonderful, uplifting performance. Full house was brought to their feet several times in a wonderful show of pride for our country. An interesting time in our country, isn't it? I remember at the bicentennial, a young pup at that time, a time of a bit of turmoil in our country. But it was not this radical. It was not this. Kinetic, with riots routinely in American cities, with public officials justifying them. At least not to the amount that we saw here. It was just amazing. I'm concerned. Are you, listeners? Are you concerned about the state of our country and where we're headed? And the insurgent, I agree with many who are saying, why do we allow them to call themselves Democrat socialists? They're socialists. In fact, I agree with Donald Trump when he said they're communists.
Yeah, they are.
They're communists. I mean, there's no other way about it. If you want to have, taking the state owning your money and taxing you ever higher to give free stuff to other people, right? That's communism. So, and taking control of the means of production and the bounties of production. So I think that's the only way you can paint it. What do you think? 573-874-9390. When we come back, I'll prove it. Someone just got elected to the state senate in New York, another one of them, and had some ideas about 9/11 that'll raise the hackles on the back of your neck. Stay tuned. You're listening to Wake Up Missouri with Stephanie Bell, me, Randy Tobler, John Marsh, and Drake Whitman. Stay tuned.
It's Wake
These are not social democrats. These are hardcore, godless communists. They're godless communists. All communists are godless. They don't believe in God. This is the most serious threat to our country since its existence, in my opinion, 250 years ago. This is a major threat to our country.
That was President Trump talking about the godless communists, and they call themselves social democrats. I would say Democrat socialists. I would say that the Democrat is just putting lipstick on the socialist pig. What do you think? 573-874-9390, the text line, 1-800-529-5572. 800-529-5572. If you'd like to weigh in on Wake Up Missouri, I'm Randy Tobler, Stephanie Bell, and John Marsh, and Drake Whitman, and we are Wake Up Missouri. We're glad you're with us. Check in with us on the Facebook feed or on the YouTube feed. Drake doesn't put it. I don't know, Drake, put yourself up on the feed there. People want to see what Drake looks like.
No, it's better if they don't know.
Oh, come on.
I'm not saying I'm ugly. I'm just saying, like, you know.
Well, I was. No, but they want to see what that looks like.
You have a lot of room to speak.
Shots fired.
I do have a face for radio, but they insist on putting us up here anyway, but that's okay. Welcome into the program. So, is he right? And what kind of a threshold do you require when you go to the polls? Do you like to have someone of faith? Do you prefer if they be of the Christian faith or the Judeo-Christian faith, or does it matter to you? How important is that on this 250th birthday that the vast majority of our founding fathers were in one way, shape, or form, some kind of faith? Some were not, a couple, but for the most part, that was considered essential there. Is it important?
I want my representatives and senators to be just like Ben Franklin, like getting, blackout drunk across the seas, making deals, wheeling and dealing, just doing everything great for America. That's what we are founded on.
But
he,
along with John Adams and others, did over and over confirm that in one way or another, you need a moral and religious people, right, for it to have a successful embrace of liberty. Because without moral restraints, liberty is just anarchy. Here's what just nominated by the Democrats to the state for the state Senate seat in New York had to say about how she feels about America.
And finding that, the system of capitalism and racism and white supremacy, etc., and Islamophobia have all been used, to colonize lands, right, to take resources from other people. And so this is like a long trajectory. And we're just seeing the manifestations of that continuation, right, with 9/11. And so a lot of times when people are asking us to respond about, attack, right, if you look back, historically, right, a lot of us come from lands that were colonized, lands where wars are being waged, right, a lot of times because of U.S. policy or the policies in Europe. And so I find that we can connect over that, but then also that the idea that we have to apologize for a terror attack that a couple of people did, and then there is no apologies or reparations for it.
That's where they're headed, apologies and reparations. And she talks about America and the evil we've done across the seas. Would that mean many of you have been on missions? Your children have been on missions. All the evil that you've done by spreading the beauty of free markets and the grace and wonder and bounty of America overseas.
I can't get past that we brought 9/11 on ourselves.
Yeah, I know.
That we deserved it.
Yeah, we deserved it, right. And reparations they deserve too.
Are
crazy.
Awful.
Hey, when we come back, we talk about some great Supreme Court decisions when it comes to immigration with Art Arthur. Stay tuned for that.
Sotomayor didn't tell the American people is if you look at the last 10 years of data, nearly 9 out of 10 people who claim asylum end up with an order of removal because they don't qualify for asylum. They're not escaping fear and persecution from the homeland because of race, religion, or political affiliation. They're coming here for a job.
Well, Tom Homan, who knows a little bit about immigration, had an opinion about asylum and other matters. The Supreme Court rendered a couple of opinions on Thursday, and to help us unpack that is our expert on all those matters, former immigration judge himself and an internationally recognized expert in the matter, Andrew Arthur from the Center for Immigration Studies at CIS.org. Art, thanks for joining us. Boy, that was big for American sovereignty last Thursday, wasn't it?
It really was. And I mean, we got two key Supreme Court decisions, one of which had to deal with when an alien arrives in the United States. Apparently, the Ninth Circuit thought that Mexico is part of the United States because they concluded that a person arrives in the United States when they arrive in Mexico. But the other one is the one that's really drawn a lot more attention, and that involves temporary protected status, or TPS, a quasi-legal status, which about 350,000 aliens in the United States currently have, but won't have for much longer, thanks to the Supreme Court.
And that largely, I mean, was centered, I think, in the rhetoric around it was about Haitians and Syrians. But some of those people have been here. As we understand it, there's a sort of a defined time in which they can be granted that when their home countries are in peril through natural disasters or whatever. But then isn't it supposed to be like 18 months? But many of them have been here for years and years and years.
Yeah, no, it's 18 months, but, it is renewable. And unfortunately, whenever you give a large group of foreign national status in the United States, you, in essence, create a constituency to never undo that temporary thing that you did. And that's exactly the way the temporary, notice my use of the word there, protected status has played out in this country.
I think it's really fascinating, isn't it, that Mayor Mamdani, after that decision, we played it earlier, we won't waste our time here, but he basically said, we stand in solidarity with the good Haitians who live in New York City. And it almost sounded like he's ready to defy ICE or whatever other enforcement, mechanism might be brought to bear on these people who no longer, by determination of the administration, need to be here. Could we have a constitutional crisis?
Yeah, we're not going to have a constitutional crisis. We may have a second civil war, but we're not going to have a constitutional crisis. And, of course, we're not going to have a second civil war because the people who, don't agree with Mamdani happen to, probably have larger numbers and more power than everybody else. But, yeah, I mean, this is typical of what we've seen out of Mamdani and typical of what we've seen out of his fellow Democratic Socialists of America who want to abolish ICE, the Supreme Court and the Senate. And, also typical of what we've seen out of New York City and New York State. They are sanctuary jurisdictions, and they have fought for decades, including under Rudolph Giuliani, let me note, to affirm the principle that they will not assist immigration enforcement in any way. And, Mamdani's young. He's certainly charismatic. But, he's picking a fight he's not going to win.
That's Andrew Arthur, resident fellow in law and policy. You see him testifying on Capitol Hill all the time, and the former immigration judge himself. He joins us on Wake Up, Missouri.
Art, talk to us about the dissent filed by Justice Sotomayor, especially in this asylum case where she talked about it being a perverse bend on this that the Judge Alito put out. What exactly did her dissent say?
Yeah, no. So one of the things that we've seen out of the three-judge dissent, of course, when I say three-judge, I mean Kagan, Sotomayor, and Ketanji Brown Jackson, is an appeal to emotion in every one of these cases. At issue in the case, and keep in mind that Thursday was Judge Sotomayor's birthday, so I think they probably gave her a little bit more runway than they normally would have to read a rather lengthy dissent. is that, we need to consider the practicalities of these poor people who are, in Mexico and unable to make their way into the United States, to apply for asylum. And it ignores a couple crucial issues, one of which is Mexico is now the third largest asylum recipient countries in the world, right after the United States and Germany. Not right after them. It's a distant third. But if you're truly, in fear of your life, from the Democratic Republic of Congo or Bangladesh, and you're in Mexico, you can apply for asylum in Mexico. You can be granted that status, as tens of thousands have been, and you can remain there permanently, which gets to the point that Tom Homan was making. These aren't really, refugees the way that we think of them. They're economic migrants. They're coming for the best economic advantage. And, there's a saying in the law that when you don't have the law, argue the facts. When you don't have the facts, argue the law. And when you don't have the law or the facts, pound the table. And really what Sotomayor was doing was pounding the table again and again and again. So, it's, I certainly admire her passion. And, from where she's coming from, she should leave the Supreme Court, run for the United States Senate from her home state of New York, and, change the law, because Congress gets to set the law. And that was really the point that the Supreme Court made in both of these cases. The Supreme Court made clear that Congress has been straightforward, is written in plain language, and that the courts, regardless of what they think of a policy, have to follow the rules that Congress has set in evaluating those policies.
Now, turning to the politics a little bit, I think, I think it's been with the war and with the economy, Republicans have been a little bit on their heels, but I think many people voted for Trump because they wanted to close the border, because they were worried about these issues, and the Supreme Court gave him some big wins. Is there an opportunity from the conservative side to message this as we go into the midterms? I think it's a winning issue.
It's curious because, many of the conservatives, many of the immigration hawks, as we refer to them, are doing exactly the opposite. Markwayne Mullin appeared on CNN with Jake Tapper on Sunday, and he more or less explained what's going to happen to all of those people who have TPS next. And this is important. Simply taking away temporary protected status doesn't mean we put people into vans, load them onto C-130s, and fly them out of the country. They're still entitled to due process. They still get removal hearings at which they can apply for some other status, some more permanent status, like asylum. Some of them may be eligible for green cards if they're married to United States citizens. And, we have to go through that process. And yet many people, many whom I respect, on the right, if you want to call it that, are like, this is a sellout, this isn't what we voted for. No, I mean, it is, and, this is a point that the doctor and I have made many times. People seem to have this sitcom view of how immigration works, that it's some perfunctory thing that people get deported. It's not. It's long, it's drawn out, and it can be aggravating. And yet, this is a situation in which, one, Trump has closed the border. And honestly, from a political standpoint, that's probably the worst thing. Best thing for the country, worst thing politically, because, then it causes people on the left to focus exclusively on all of the people who are here, as if once you get into the United States, you get to be here forever. And this is a point Homan makes a lot, and that is, if we grant amnesty, real or de facto, to everybody who has entered the United States illegally, defending the border becomes impossible because everybody knows that once you get in, you're here permanently. So, everybody kind of needs to take a breath. I don't expect anybody to do that because politics is lucrative. And, really take a look at what these decisions mean and how they're going to impact the future. The one on the border, the one on asylum at the border, that is key to defending the border because it stands for the principle that the United States is a sovereign nation and we have a sovereign right to keep people out. The asylum statute in the Immigration and Nationality Act does not require us to let anybody who's not in the country into the country. And that's really what that law stands for. And It's very important because it reverses a key policy of the Biden administration that we had to let everybody in who wanted asylum. So, these are important things. If, many on the right took a breath, realized what they said, and messaged them properly, they could, claim clear victory. But, unfortunately, sanctimony is more fun than explanation, so that's where we are.
That's Art Arthur. You can read a real nice summary of all this with more detail even than we've had time to talk about here on CIS.org, Center for Immigration Studies, CIS.org. A couple of nice pieces there. In the last minute and a half we have here, they're talking about brevity of the process, the due process. A federal judge in Texas had something to say about that. Is that going to hold? And what did she say or he say?
Yeah, it's Reed O'Connor in the Northern District of Texas. And what O'Connor did was he issued an order that bans immigration courts from using what's called administrative closure. That's where a judge takes a case off of a docket, purportedly temporarily, so that the alien can seek some other benefit from a different agency that they can then come back into immigration court and generally get a green card. But, when I say temporary, right now, the average case that's been administratively closed has been closed for 18 years. And the Biden administration in particular used that process called administrative closure to remove more than 100,000 cases from the docket and to basically ensure that those people aren't going anywhere, probably within their lifetimes, definitely within mine. And so, this is a huge decision. This is one that's going to allow immigration courts to do their work a whole lot more quickly and, ensure due process, but ensure due process in a shorter time frame.
Yeah, that's it. Take the dust off of those cases and let's get them figured out. Real quickly, decision may come out today on birthright citizenship. You going to make a prediction?
Yeah, I'm going to make a prediction. The Supreme Court is going to find that the second clause of the 14th Amendment, which goes all persons born and naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof are citizens of the United States, they're going to find that that's a vague term, but they're going to find that it's a vague term that only Congress can interpret, not President Trump as he did in his executive order. But even then, Trump has started a very important conversation, and it will end up changing the law, Randy.
All right, and there's no one better to lead that conversation than Art Arthur and his colleagues at the Center for Immigration Studies. Thanks so much for unpacking an awful lot in a little time. Appreciate it, Art.
Thank you so much, Doctor. You all have a blessed day.
You too. All right, good stuff, good stuff. Hey, when we come back, John, what's happening?
The loaded question, where's the best place to spend your advertising dollars if you're in the market for a husband?
All right, we'll find out when we come back on Wake Up Missouri. Listen up, ladies.
It's Wake Up Missouri.
Those request for love has finally paid off. California woman went viral last year, putting up billboards along Highway 101 with her photo and a link to a website where potential suitors could submit their dating applications. 8 months and almost $7,000 later, Catalano's off the market. She footed the bill for the advertising, including billboards, taxi ads, and the website, along with wardrobe, makeup, video shoots, and what they call related equipment.
Whoa.
She got 4,000 dating apps up to May of 2026. After all that, she ended up meeting her new beau, it turns out, back in January. An update on the website reads, applications closed. Lisa's in love and has a boyfriend, describing him as kind, intelligent, attractive. From the San Francisco Bay Area, a man who meets all of her very reasonable non-negotiables. And the kicker is, I met him on a radio station dating site.
No. Really?
How about that?
Do we need our own dating site?
I don't know. You San Francisco radio, you better watch the dating site you might end up on there, but okay.
That's John Marsh. I'm Randy Tobler, along with Stephanie Bell and producer Drake on Wake Up Missouri. Now, producer Drake, were you not attuned to her various dating advertisements? Where were you in your hunt for the next date?
I'd rather die than live in California. Yeah, no, not my thing. Arizona, 100%, not California.
Well, those Cali girls, they're healthy, though. They get the fresh salt air out there and the beautiful weather. And,
well, the problem with California girls is if they're hot, they're getting DM'd by every NFL, NBA player on Earth. They're just getting DMs left and right. So your girl's never safe in L.A.
My daughter-in-law, Sean, our oldest wife, is from Sacramento, a little north of Sacramento. Yeah, wonderful, wonderful girl.
She lived in San Mateo, out in the general Bay Area.
She's from Roseville. Yeah. And very health conscious. And she took a long hiking trip. She was running marathons and everything. So I don't know. I wouldn't. You going to use that as an exclusion? Does that mean would that extend to Illinois and New York? And
not even close. No, actually, Chicago's the best place to get a woman in a big city. Because they still have, loosely, some of those Midwestern values, unlike, Miami, where they're getting drunk every night and doing blow. But, there's a lot of intricacies. I've studied it a little.
Okay, well, 573-874-9390. If you want to weigh in on Drake. If you're just joining us, we're following the ups and downs, the fits and starts that are Drake's romantic life, and we share those from time to time.
Also, no second date. The accordion was the red flag.
He wondered on a date last weekend if maybe mentioning the accordion right at the end of what was a successful date.
I'd say it was pretty good. Also, another problem with Miami and those southern cities, the southern women want to get married in like 6 months. You can't have that.
No, you can't do that.
No, you can't do that.
Well, we were talking about immigration and the Haitians, and then I thought about this.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. They're eating the dogs. They're eating the cats.
Remember that?
They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
Oh, we're having too much fun on Wake Up Missouri. We're going to be back and hear about Stephanie's trip to Israel when we return.
From the Zimmer Radio Network headquarters, it's your morning addiction.
What they deserve to have is what they once had, and of which there is recent history of, and that is a prosperous and peaceful country.
Wake Up Missouri with Stephanie Bell.
The Islamic Republic of Iran, they're having a hard time with food.
The Zimmer News Team.
Secure borders saves lives. Secure borders protects our national security.
And now, introducing your host, Randy Tobler.
650-foot tunnel in a village where guns were stored. The U.S. was told about the attack before it happened. Strike comes just 2 days after Lebanon and Israel agreed to a U.S. brokered deal to stop fighting along the border. Hezbollah says Israel's attacks are a flagrant violation of the ceasefire, adding it will continue its armed resistance.
Well, there you go. Welcome back into Wake Up Missouri. Thanks for being with us as the ceasefires that aren't ceasefires, at least operationally, continue to roil the area in the Middle East. And Stephanie, welcome back from the Israel. We hear stories about this, a thwarted attack while you were there in Israel by Hezbollah. What say you? What was the temperature on the ground there? What did it feel like?
I was certainly anxious going over there. I had the opportunity, Jennifer Bukowski, who you'll hear on Zimmer News stations, was with me as well. And so we had a small Missouri delegation, but we were over there with other Republican leaders with the American Israel Education Foundation. And certainly I had a lot of folks say, are you sure this is the time you should be going over? And I'm so glad that I did. We learned so much. I was hoping to join you all last week at some point, but they had us on the run, and I'm glad they did. We learned a ton, but certainly a really tense time, and that's what we heard over and over and over is just, the last 3 years since October 7th, they've been engaged in a war, and I think a lot of us think about October 7th and don't realize, that's been ongoing since then, and certainly it's a tense time right now. We traveled all over. And I wrote down, and we had to talk a little bit about our takeaways. And so being on the ground, I really got to see things for myself. And so, I think for me, the more tense moments were we went up into some lookouts and we could see, see into Gaza, right? See the fence. So being that close was really intense. We also visited and we were able to see into Lebanon, right? And so to see how close the conflict is was really eye-opening, because I think it's easy for us in America when we're surrounded by water to not understand the closeness. And we're talking about, and I don't think I fully realized how small Israel is. And so you're talking about a country that's about the size of New Jersey, about the same population, about 10 million people. And so, would easily fit in, inside of Missouri. I know Jennifer sent me a map of showing, the relation to the size of our state. And so I think it was, without seeing it in person, it was, kind of hard to comprehend. You can kind of read about it, but seeing the closeness of that was really intense.
Did you go to the West Bank?
We got.
Did you see any of the settlements there or anything like that?
We got near there.
Near there, okay.
But, yeah. And so we...
Now, you had security with you were telling me, right? I mean, the entire time.
Correct.
IDF?
Correct.
Yeah.
And so, we got to visit with all sorts of different people. And one of the things I really liked was we got different perspectives. But just hearing about the last 3 years was really intense. Here we had dinner with the reservists and understanding that the reservists, like many of our reservists, I think used to serve just, weekends here and there, maybe a month throughout the year. And many of them are serving 100 or more days a year. And just the impact that has on your family and your kids and your job and, the population at large, I think was really impactful. Seeing the pictures of school children having to take cover, run for safety as the sirens are going off. We visited their Wounded Veterans Center, and they said, I think they, for many years, averaged about I think they said 50 to 60,000 wounded veterans. Certainly they had some coming in, and then of course we have veterans who pass away. But they've added 20,000 or more since October 7th to their rolls of wounded veterans. So,
they have a powerhouse medical establishment there. A lot of research, great world-class hospitals, but they need them.
Yeah, and so they said basically, the country is so small that even though, a lot of it is happening on the borders, everyone's affected. Many of these people are family. They have family all over, and so whether you're talking school children or people in the reserves or whatever, it impacts everyone's daily life. And I think that was eye-opening. I think I didn't have any idea how many Arabs and Palestinians are living in Israel. That's 20% of their population.
Getting along?
Yeah, we had some of them speak with us, and they said, I am Palestinian. I'm also an Israeli citizen, right? And so that was an interesting perspective and kind of eye-opening for me, because I don't think that's clear from what you get in the mainstream media.
We hear a lot about how it's not everyone doesn't have solidarity with Benjamin Netanyahu, and what is that by those folks described as a hyper-aggressive stance, and he's not everyone's favorite over there. What'd you hear?
Wait, say that again. Sorry.
Well, I mean, among the Israeli people, I mean, he's not Mr. Popular in all quarters.
About Netanyahu.
Yeah, Netanyahu.
Yeah, we visited the Knesset and we heard from both the folks who are in charge now, right, and that are with Netanyahu. We also heard from what they call the opposition, and they have elections coming up, and I think there's there's some calls, and they think perhaps there'll be a different coalition, leading at some point in the future.
What's their beef with Netanyahu? What are they saying?
He was in charge on October 7th, and there were some serious failures. I think that was the number one thing. I heard that.
It wasn't about his aggressive stance toward Iran.
I mean, and that's another. This is a very good point, because even people in coalitions, they're just like us. We don't all agree, right? And so I can't say for that there is an overwhelming
not a consensus. Yeah.
Different people. I mean, there are different reasons why people don't like Trump.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's very similar, right? There's a very diverse set of perspectives, and I don't think you could say there's one thing. I did hear from several people that he was leading the country on October 7th, and there were some failures
Big
there.
fail.
So anyway.
You went to that site, you said.
I did. I think that was the most impactful. We visited the Nova site and saw all the memorials. So there are signs, and I'll post some pictures on the Facebook page. They had their faces, and their families had kind of, short obituaries. I'm going to get emotional trying to talk about it. But and we heard from a survivor who was at the concert with friends who had friends who didn't make it, kind of ran us through minute by minute. From being at that concert through that entire day, just horrific. There were a lot of Missouri connections, which was kind of surprising to me. We went to Yad Vashem, which is the Holocaust Museum, and memorial, and we saw the woman who was our tour guide had both of her children in St. Louis, had spent some time in Missouri, and was telling us when she found out from Missouri. We were sharing stories. We heard from a Palestinian Christian pastor who pastors a church in Bethlehem, and he went to Baptist Bible College, which is now Mission University in Springfield, Missouri.
I'll be done.
And so that was really interesting. When later we heard about kind of innovation in tech, we hear a lot about that, the innovations that come out of Israel. We heard about AI, an AI healthcare tech company. They're using AI to read ultrasounds and other scans. His mom was from St. Louis.
Really?
So really interesting. And then you'll love this. We stopped at a brisket place for lunch, which everyone was very excited about, and everyone's pointing through the window, and we see the smoker is an old hickory smoker, and it says Cape Girardeau, Missouri on it, standing right there in Israel. So
that's great.
It was neat to see with all the Missouri connections. But certainly we visited the holy sites. We saw the Pool of Siloam. We walked Pilgrimage Road. We visited the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. We went to the Western Wall. Yad Vashem was really impactful. We went up to Masada, the fortress. We floated in the Dead Sea, visited the Knesset, and certainly the Nova site was really impactful.
So you floated without much, you didn't have to do any treading? You just float, huh?
It was so wild. It was the craziest thing. I'll post a picture. Yeah. I mean, it was, I've never experienced anything quite like that. And it was an incredible experience. And I think overwhelmingly, again, we heard a lot of differing point of views about the politics, about the conflict, about daily life, which, I can appreciate. In America, we have a lot of differing point of views, but overwhelmingly, everyone who got up to speak and who we talked with, they were super thankful, and not thankful toward any person, thankful toward the group, and saying, this isn't an easy time to visit our country. We understand that. But we're thankful to have the conversation, for you to, use your time to experience it in person, to ask tough questions, to be able to talk to you about our experiences, to be challenged, to, have a two-way conversation. And I really appreciated that.
Steph, I had family members who went to the Holy Land within the last couple of years, and one of the younger members of the family's biggest takeaway, he said, was we landed at the airport in Tel Aviv, got on a bus, and an hour later we were in Jerusalem.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. I did, my luggage was a little bit delayed, and we were...
Now that could be a disaster.
Yeah, it wasn't that far for them to, because we flew into Tel Aviv, but it's I was shocked.
You mentioned
at
that
how close everything was.
There's not a consensus on domestic policy there. Is there some kind of a sense of, for lack of a sense of gratitude at large for America and what we've done for that country? I mean, do you get that sense, or is it assumed? Is it
No,
taken for granted? What?
And it wasn't necessary. There's a lot of gratitude, okay. And I think not just for the relationship, certainly the relationship, and I think there was a lot of conversation about, hey, it's a two-way street. Like, you guys have been sharing information with us, we're sharing information with you. Like, we do things that maybe like that support you that you're not willing to do, kind of thing. But like, certainly gratitude. And also, where I heard it most, when I was just talking to regular folks, I got to do a Shabbat dinner with the family, and got to sit next to a woman who has 3 kids, same as me, boy, girl.
That's neat.
And overwhelmingly, certainly some thankfulness for the hostages.
Yeah.
They said without the actions of the United States, we wouldn't have gotten all of those people back. And, every person to us matters, and getting the hostages back was really important. And we really appreciate your support in that effort. Just overwhelming. Especially about the hostages, really appreciative.
It's good to have you back safe and sound. I know everyone was a little worried with what was going on there, but
and I'm still processing it all. So if I sound like it's like, it was a lot to take in.
Good report.
So happy to answer questions or continue the conversation, but certainly just a trip of a lifetime.
Who'd have ever thunk it? Barbecued brisket or smoked brisket on a grill on a smoker from Cape Girardeau, Missouri, in Israel. It doesn't get any better than that. You're listening to Wake Up Missouri. That's Stephanie. I'm Randy, along with John Marsh and Drake. Thanks for being with us on Wake Up Missouri. Stay tuned with us on Facebook and on YouTube, and of course on your app or on the website. No excuse not to be here, but if you can't make the whole program, Drake puts up a podcast later on of the very best of, and you'll hear that as well. Back with the Morning Market Report on the Morning Bell when we return.
It's Wake Up Missouri.
Time for the morning market report as we catch up on what's happening in the markets. Of course, things so tumultuous because we have so much going on, as Stephanie just outlined. I mean, my gosh, every time there's missiles now being fired at installations, missile launching installations on land by the U.S. in retaliation for Iran sending drones against transport ships, claiming that they have control of the waterways again. The markets were down, weren't they, on Friday? Stephanie, down about
just barely.
We
had
bit,
the NASDAQ down 0.24%, the Dow down 0.09%, the S&P down 0.05%.
And while oil has ticked up a little bit, I think we're all thankful that prices at the pump are down on the wings of oil being down to the same kind of numbers we were looking at before the whole thing broke out at the end of February. Dow futures up about 0.5%. NASDAQ recovering from what was a plummeting market in chips last week. Chips, really took a nosedive, but it's up about 1.25% on the pre-market opening futures. And, apparently that might be buoyed by some news just coming out of the wires that Donald Trump is saying that the U.S. and Iran are going to start talking again, fresh talks in Qatar on Tuesday, tomorrow, following weekend clashes. Boy, I tell you, this thing is back and forth. I don't know if anything is going to get worked out. I just don't want to see oil go up, which will only threaten the midterms, which are already historically going to be a problem.
I didn't have to buy gas last week. Are we doing better here in Missouri?
We paid $3.49.
Hey, that's
I wonder
way
what
better.
it is in our listening area. Let us know, 573-874-93 in our various outlets, wherever you are. Let us know, 573-874-9390. What kind of numbers are you seeing for both the regular gas? My diesel's down under, it's now not at $5.29 like I paid way back a month or so ago. Well, my big truck is a diesel sucking hog.
We have some diesel vehicles as well. That's rough. Randy, I saw this article and I'm wondering, have you been doing any updating to your home as of late?
No, I'm just trying to keep up with all of the carnage that I have to keep up with from the maintenance perspective. It's an older home.
The Morning Brew was covering home renovation trends, and I used to be a real DIYer, but now I'm thinking I'm like boomer in my DIY. The things that I like to do are out of style apparently.
Oh, really?
So no more monochromatic like white farmhouse and gray. That's no longer trendy. An open concept. Remember, that was a big deal. Like, you want a light and airy and all the rooms open. They said that is really no longer desirable as they're looking at
the great
new
room,
home construction plans. Yeah,
the great room with the kitchen, right?
People are going back to a little bit of separation.
Does that mean a separate dining room? Or are we not there yet?
Well, that's a huge debate. I know that's probably the least used room in my entire home, except for just like clutter, papers, and a table full of junk. But they did say the smart home features are a big thing, whether it's thermostats, doorbell cameras, other things. But they also said tricked out guest bathrooms. That people are, that was the number one. Last year, 25% of homeowners reported updating their guest bathrooms, the top project for homeowners. I'm sorry. I'm more worried about myself. I'm going to do a master bath.
You want the master bath, yeah.
At some point.
The guest can be guest.
I don't know you can say it master anywhere. Primary bath,
let,
right?
Let them eat cake and let them have the guest bathroom the way it is. Should parents be held responsible for their children's health? That coming up.
As America
On this Monday in our semi-quintennial, is that right?
Can you just say the 250th?
Oh, well,
I don't think you got that wrong. You had it right earlier.
No, I had it right. It's the
Semi-
okay. It's the semi. I got to get it right here. John, help me here. The semi-sesquint. No, it's not the semi-sesquicentennial. Semi-quincentennial. Semi-quincentennial. That's what it is. It's the 250th of something.
Thank you.
Semi-quincentennial. I like 250th. America 250. We're going to be talking to Pat Thomas tomorrow, right? She's going to be in?
At 7:35. She's going to give us an update on all the, she works, I think, chairs the Missouri Commission on America 250. And they got a website, and there's a lot going on, so we'll get an update from her.
So we'll help guide you to various things going on in your communities through that discussion tomorrow. Waiting on 8 big Supreme Court opinions yet to be unleashed, hopefully today and tomorrow. And we are trying to get Zach to come on Wednesday. We're hoping we'll have our Supreme Court expert from Heritage on Wednesday. And did you know that Planned Parenthood, by the way, is going to get funded on July 5th if the funding prohibition for the One Big Beautiful Bill isn't renewed? It was a 1-year deal.
Really?
That expires. So we're going to be talking about that as the week goes on. It's a big deal. They can start billing for covered services, whatever that means, if the Congress doesn't get on it. So did you hear about this story out of Michigan? This is a troubling one. This young 7-year-old succumbed to what was termed dilated cardiomyopathy. That's congestive heart failure. That's when the heart gets big and flabby and just doesn't pump adequately. And this was a 255-pound boy, 7 years old, died weighing 255 pounds. The parents are reportedly hoarders, and they have been charged with second-degree murder. And there was a lot of talk about this around our barbecue table and the outside activities yesterday. Young parents, I have 2 daughters that have young children, and we've got thinking about that. Police responded to a 911 call for a child at distress at the dilapidated home in Flint Township, Michigan, last November. Casper was rushed to a local hospital where he died a short time later from dilated cardiomyopathy. Contributing cause listed on the death certificate was morbid obesity. Apparently, he was 4 feet 2 inches, weighed 255 pounds. And I'm speculating here. I don't know all the details of the case, obviously, but I would have to say that there may have been some contributing factor here. Apparently, the child didn't have a pediatrician, was only taken to the doctor once. Is second-degree murder the right accountability for this? Is that the right charge? Or should it have been neglect? Should it have been worse than second-degree murder? Well, it certainly wouldn't be first-degree murder. I mean, you'd have to say they planned it that way. Extraordinary neglect at a minimum. But, you look at the parents, and both of them look like very, 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 severely overweight. At what point does the state have the need or the right to intervene? I understand this child was being homeschooled. And there's a lot of concern about the state coming in and rushing in and saying, hey, Stephanie, John, Randy's kids, all of you out there, you're not raising your kids the way the state wants. And there's worried about overreach. On the other hand, doesn't the government have a duty to protect public safety? And doesn't the public include, many of us would say, the preborn, but certainly the born and above? Well, no one would argue about that, would they? Where does that bar on protection lie? And I guess this child had just been held. No one ever knew anything about this. The man apparently has a good job. The family has health insurance. It's a tough call. Drake, what do you think about the whole issue of DFS and where they should intervene if they have any awareness? Maybe they didn't have any awareness in Michigan.
I was about to say, it doesn't sound like anyone knew about this kid. Like, did they just keep him in the basement and feed him, like, food scraps? Like, he's never seen sunlight before? Like, one of those little situations like that. I don't know, because this kid, I mean, This sounds like a terrible situation. I do think the government should intervene on that, but
I have concerns about the age, the younger and younger ages at which we're seeing metabolic disease in young people.
Yeah.
I mean, I see it a lot in teenagers. We see young girls that have terrible problems with that, and it becomes a fertility problem up the road. It's early diabetes and all the things that come from that, hypertension. And you see it in boys, too, but the girls seem to express it more because it results in all kinds of, menstrual problems and stuff, too. So
I find trouble with it whenever they get to college, personally. I mean, yeah, it's just terrible.
Seeing that a lot on the dating apps, are you?
Oh, my God, it is the worst thing ever, Randy. You know what? One of these days, I'm going to show you what the average dating site looks like.
I'm not sure I want to spend time doing that, but if you want to show me some of that, that'd be fine.
It's so
That'd
bad, Randy.
I'll get a little glimpse into the world of Drake and his dating. That's where most relationships start now, right? On the dating sites. It's not at school. It's not at the church group. It's not at the philanthropic group.
It did with the woman we talked about at 750, the one in California who went to found her guy after spending $7,000 on billboards, found him on a radio station dating app.
Stephanie, as a parent of children that sometimes maybe at some point in their life didn't want to eat some of the healthy stuff, like what do you call it, a snackle box that you bring along?
Mm-hmm.
Was that? I mean, most kids, given the choice, if we have natural inborn sort of instincts to sort of prefer salt and sweet and fat and stuff, but that is stimulated a lot by the baby foods that are super sweet. I think parents are getting away from that. But how did you handle it when kids said, "I'm just not going to eat. I don't want the healthy stuff you're eating"? How do you handle it?
You can go hungry.
Yeah, that's what we ended up doing. And I think, isn't it smart though, from early on to set the example by that's what's here. That's all they know.
Yeah, and I think they can kind of turn their nose up, and I don't force them to eat anything, but this is what we're eating, and you don't get a different meal. I think there were times where I said, and they said, well, then I'm finished. And I said, oh, you can sit here for 15 minutes with the rest of the family while we eat then. Mm-hmm. And then you see them start kind of picking because they're hungry, right? Yeah. And so then they're like, and so we serve fresh vegetables with every meal. We try to keep them like raw veggies. And I mean, I'm telling you, I have to refill that thing every meal. They munch down raw veggies like crazy, but it's something that they're used to. And, we serve it with ranch even though I don't like ranch.
That was going to be my question. Yes. Stephanie's propensity against ranch, but you've weaned your kids toward it, I guess. Huh?
We don't actually serve it with ranch. We serve it with a ranch flavored like yogurt dressing, but it kind of is ranch flavored.
Not the authentic ranch.
Not traditional ranch, but no, they do a good job, and I think it's a little bit. And I don't purport. I mean, my kids eat all sorts of snacks, so I don't purport to be a perfect parent in that realm. And I would say it is, I believe, a little bit harder as they get older, because it's not like I keep the Doritos under lock and key. Yeah. They drink soda, they eat ice cream. I try to give them a lot of options, and I try to make sure that they're not eating a bag of chips right before we're about to sit down for a meal. But certainly as they get older, I feel like I have less control. and I just try to say, chips are not a healthy breakfast. Neither is candy. And so before you eat a dessert or a snack, I'd like you to have actual food, and not because, and I remind them, you're involved in sports, you have a school day coming up, you need to fuel your body, and you're not going to feel well or perform well on the soccer field or on the basketball court if you don't fuel your body in the right way. So we try to have conversations about that. But certainly, I mean, they got really good at making their own ramen. They love ramen.
There does come a time when I think it's wise for parents to say, no, sorry, you've overdone it. We're going to eat this food. This is what's here.
And I found we just don't keep it in the house. I mean, you've heard my my horrible parenting. I think it was Easter candy, but they were very young, and they had gotten a bunch of candy, I think, at school. I'm going to get hate for this. And they kept asking for it and asking for it and asking for it.
Yeah.
And, 8 a.m., can I have a piece of candy? And I had hit it for, they knew it was like up where they couldn't reach it. And they were very young. Can I have a piece of candy? I said, no, you can have a piece of candy after we eat lunch. 15 minutes later, can I have a piece of candy? And I said, ask me again. I said, you know what? You can't have candy if we don't have any candy, and you need to stop asking for candy. I told you could have some after lunch. This went on for about, 24 hours. And man, they asked me for candy. I marched them out with the bag of candy to the blue dumpster, and we threw it all away.
Ooh.
And I said, guess what? Now you can't ask me for candy because we don't have any.
That's accountability.
And it just, I can't handle that.
Glad Drake didn't know about that. He'd have gone dumpster diving. Some of the stuff.
I was about to say, I would have 100% done that as a kid.
And they, now we keep some candy around and they get it at school or whatever.
Yeah.
But, trying to let them know, like, it's not a way to fuel your body, and we're just not going to be obsessed with candy.
Yeah, I think if you have a sort of a hard and fast, this is bad, this is good rule, that doesn't work out. It's just like, hey, healthy is the word, right?
Yeah, and my
this
answer wasn't no candy.
Yeah.
My answer was we can have candy after we eat our meal, but they weren't going to take that answer at the time. Now it's kind of fun because they really I buy these brownies from Trader Joe's, and they really love to make them in the evening. And before, like, I wouldn't just cook a pan of brownies for myself, but if someone, it's making my diet a little bit harder, but it's fun that they, can bake their own treats, and we can do that occasionally.
You also hit on it, though, Steph. Talked about your kids, your 3 kids. I mean, they're involved in athletics, and there's nothing at the table like a hungry athlete.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
I mean, with the last road trip we went on, we stopped for fast food, and I don't even think I had my sandwich unwrapped, and I look back, and my son's wadding his wrapper up, and I'm like, Did you inhale that? And I'm like, you're going to have digestive problems if you don't slow down.
Young
but yeah,
athletes can
I'm
do it.
realizing my food budget is about to get really expensive.
We make it clear that, there's special times when you have some fun. Tomorrow we're having a third birthday party at the office, and folks can come out and say hi. So let's have some mini cupcakes. I think they're having some charcuterie, oh boy. And some infused water with some healthy stuff, maybe good flavors. So, and Shannon brought the kids in, and she had to bring in the darn Dots pretzels. I put those things away.
They're Randy's kryptonite.
Well, now there's a new flavor, the cinnamon sugar Dots pretzels.
You should have told me
Put
that.
them away.
It's like a churro.
I'd rather have celery sticks, maybe. We'll be back with leftovers after this.
It's Wake Up Missouri.
Stephanie Bell, John Marsh, and Drake Whitman. Catch the podcast later on if you weren't able to tune in to our interview on the SCOTUS, the Supreme Court decisions on the immigration, our deep discussion into the glyphosate decision and what that means. Lots of opinion among all of our listeners there. And a little talk about the Stephanie's trip to Israel as well. A lot of interesting stuff there. Thanks for that, Steph. I'm glad you're home safe. What do you have in the leftover department, John? Oh, you got one, Steph? Go for it.
Yeah, I've got the Springfield News Leader reports that 24 Missourians were charged in a national health care fraud investigation.
Oh, yeah.
And we've talked about all the fraud with daycares and other healthcare entities in other states, but apparently it's happening right here at home. The Department of Justice charged more than 450 people, including 24 Missouri residents, in connection with a global healthcare fraud scheme totaling $6.5 billion. It involved opioid abuse schemes across 45 states, people who submitted false claims to Medicare, Medicaid, and other programs.
It happens in a lot. It happens on both sides. It happens with patients selling their numbers or their insurance, information to be used by other people that don't have the insurance. It happens with practitioners and others, the providers of medical equipment, with day care, including adult sort of daycare, home care people. It happens all across the board where people either bill for things they didn't do, they double bill for things they did do. A process called unbundling. There's a process that a lot of people in the medical community are just terribly up in arms about, and it's a stupid thing. The rules about what defines a certain level of care, you have to go through an algorithm, and did I do this, to check this many boxes and that many boxes and this many components and that many, and then that's a 99213. Well, I think it was a 99214. Well, that technically could say you overbilled for that. And I don't think that's the kind of thing that the Department of Justice is looking at. I think they're looking for flagrant violation with systematic overbilling and overcharging. So it's good to see they're rooting this evil out. That's good. That's a lot of money. We're talking what billions here, right? So it's a big deal.
Yeah, and of course I hear about the opiums given out like candy now after it's already been shut down. Thanks a lot, guys.
Drake Whitman, ladies and gentlemen. Okay. John, what do you have?
Well, we got a story that I think a lot of folks in all areas of the state this year can relate to. All the rain is costing the city of Ashland money. City officials there say the rain and the flooding damaged their under construction wastewater treatment plant. And now the engineers have come in and looked at it, say the project could be set back by 2 months, $28 million expansion. So, boy, the flooding has just been nuts no matter where you are.
Well, there's a lot of construction going on along Highway 70 and, of course, along 44 in the southwest part of the state, and a lot of, upgrades being made. And I would imagine that some of that, I don't know if it's going to be delayed a long time. I haven't heard any Department of Transportation reports that it's going to be super delayed, but probably some that, after all, there's a lot of dirt work involved.
No, it broke records all across the state for the amount of rainfall.
Yeah. I haven't heard a lot of farmers telling me they've had to replant the crops. That happened a few years ago. It was wiped out because of the plants started coming up and then washed out totally. I think we may have escaped that. I'm not sure. Let us know. 800-529-5572 if I've missed that, but I hope not. I mean, I really, really hope we have a nice, bountiful, crop output. Drake's crying in his beer over the Charlotte Hornets, his favorite team. Why? I don't know, Drake. I don't know.
They traded their third best player, so, it's complete rebuild. I can't aim all of my anger towards Peter anymore, sadly.
Okay. Well, get out the violins. Everyone say a prayer.
Get out the violins. Randy, you have no clue what I'm going through right now.
Hey, we enjoyed being with you. Thanks for being with us tomorrow. We'll see you tomorrow on Wake Up Missouri.
Bye.